This is the Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall.
Let's go nuts! It's Jimmy Nuts! Right out of the door!
With your hosts, Mark Martinez.
Because I'm the Mark and I'm awesome!
The Guru.
Today I'm going to break it down for all you simpleton sweat hogs listening out there in Can Crusher Nation. I don't mean to come out here week after week and toot my own horn, but toot.
And the English Professor.
It is I, the English professor from the County of Kings, speaking the English of the Queen.
Hey, this is former WWE superstar Duke the Dumpster Drosy, and you are listening to the Can Crushers Podcast.
And welcome back to another Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Mark the Mark Martinez, and I'm not in a studio.
No, you are in, what is it called, the castle, the library, whatever we're calling it this week, of the English Professor.
What am I doing down here?
Well, we're getting ready to go to a live wrestling event tonight. Actually, when you listen to this,
long time ago.
It'll be a couple of weeks later. But Mark and I are in the same place at the same time for the first time in about a year and a half. It's great to see you, buddy. It really is.
That's incredible.
It's just incredible.
It's amazing.
It really is. It really is.
So, John, you've seen everything. You've heard me say just incredible. You've said it.
Right.
That's our interview today.
That's a huge interview, guys. We have Just Incredible. You may remember him also as PJ Walker, the Portuguese Man O War, Aldo Montoya. I want to know a little bit about, because you were the much bigger
I want to talk
ECW fan.
ECW.
Yeah, you want to talk ECW. I also want to talk about that, but I want to talk about his WWF days, maybe find out what the locker room was like with Razor and Diesel. And then, that incident in Massachusetts where Razor was not well. We'll just say that. I want to pick Just Incredible's brain a little bit about that incident.
I want to give him some time to self-promote as well. Do you know he's doing a podcast with Vince Russo right now?
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I want to know more about that. I've listened, by the way. You have not, I'm guessing.
I didn't know about it, so no, obviously I've never listened.
Okay, but we have to do something first.
That's right. We have to talk about collar and elbow.
Yeah, and we're matching.
We are, yeah. We're twinsies today.
Right?
We have the exact same collar and elbow hoodie on. It's not just hoodies, guys. It's T-shirts, hats, eye patches, vests, pants. It is just such cool wrestling gear. And if you want to go to Collar and Elbow and order some of it, we have a promo code that we want to share with you.
It's Can Crushers. All one word, capital C in Can, capital C in Crushers.
And when you use that promo code, guys, you save some money. It's 10% off the total, which, we always say it. That 10% kind of adds up to one of two things, depending how you want to look at life.
Shipping or parking, which the 10% that we saved on Collar and Elbow, I'm paying for parking today.
Nice. So we can park close for a change. We don't have to walk
it's
a mile.
It's about damn time.
All right. Nice. So you paid shipping, but we're Collar and Elbow paid for parking.
Right.
Thank you, Collar and Elbow.
Here comes Al Snow. When we come back, we're going to have Just Incredible on the line, which is
Just Incredible.
Wrestling. A love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand. The wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connect emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
And welcome back, Can Crushers listeners. We just heard from Al Snow over at Collar and Elbow, hats, hoodies, T-shirts, eye patches, vests, all sorts of great wrestling stuff. Mark, you're wearing your collar and elbow hoodie. I'm wearing my collar and elbow hoodie. And it's the trifecta. Our guest this week is just incredible, and he's wearing the same exact collar and elbow shirt that we're wearing.
Right? It's like we all planned this out. Al Snow should give us extra money this month, right?
He should, yes.
You really
He
should.
certainly should.
Just incredible. Thanks so much for joining us on Can Crushers.
Oh, no doubt, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So before we get into everything, we see you started a podcast as well, right?
I do one now with Vince Russo.
Yeah.
I had one a long time ago, going on maybe 2 years, that I do not do anymore. It was, I just felt there was so much going on. I wanted to do something a little different. And when I got together with Vince, right at the beginning of AEW, we decided on his brand, to do an AEW review show. So we literally have been doing it since the inception, since episode 1, all the way down to today. We have reviewed every single show. So it's been crazy.
So you're copying us, essentially. No, sorry.
Yeah. But it's been really fun. It's been a lot of fun.
So recording time, guys. This is the night before Double or Nothing. How excited are you for Double or Nothing?
I'm excited. I always get excited for AEW pay-per-views specifically because I think we've all just grown so accustomed to the WWE product that we at times almost take them for granted. It doesn't seem as much of a big event as it used to be. Like Royal Rumbles and WrestleManias now are like the only ones that I personally, as a fan, me personally, I'm talking about now, still look forward to. The rest just seems like an extended version of Raw or SmackDown, a very long Raw or SmackDown.
Right.
But it's not, it doesn't hold my interest like it did maybe 10 years ago. I don't know why. Or what it is. It's just something that's just not there. I know the pandemic certainly has hurt. Not wrestling in front of fans is very difficult. But nonetheless, the AEW, get back on track, the AEW pay-per-views, I always look forward to because they're still so young. Anything can happen. As we've seen with the barbed wire exploding thing, how that was a big dud, if you will.
Yeah.
And a couple of other things that have gone well and some not so well. So, I just always do look forward to the experiment that is AEW at this point.
I like how he said it's fresh. It's something new for us. We're all roughly the same age during today's podcast. So you're right. We feel the same way about WWE. I mean, we watch them because we have a podcast. But there's times that we're like, man, why are we watching this? This is rough.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me. I watch very, very little, if any, of WWE. Once again, not because it is not good. I think they have some of the most talented men and women in the entire world. I'm just not interested in. I think the best thing I could say is nobody is over like they used to be, like the fans, I should say. People are very popular, but it's been a very long time since there's been anybody like, and I'm going all-time greats, of course, but during the Attitude Era, like everybody was over, it seemed. Even the Ruthless Aggression era, right out of John Cena, when he started to really break big in the 2005 and 6s, the WWE just hasn't gotten over since guys like Stone Cold and The Rock and many others, the Jerichos of the world. So I think what we really are looking for are some real breakout stars because, like I said, the action is crisp. They have some of the best wrestlers, of all time, So it's not the action, it's the way that I think the stars are presented in this day and age that just has me, it's not must see anymore. Nothing really feels must see to me. Where back in the day, I'd watch a Monday Night Raw or whatever, or, a SmackDown, or even during the Monday Night Wars, you had to watch certain things. This guy was showing up, or this rumor was, very, very few times now in the business that happens. So I'm hoping, optimistically, cautiously optimistic that AEW pulls out something good.
Does that opinion extend to NXT too, or is that just that you're feeling on Raw and SmackDown?
I don't watch NXT.
No, okay.
I've heard good things about it, but I don't watch it.
Nice. All right, so let's do the rewind because there's a ton to talk about, a lot in your history. But what brought you into wrestling? Was it an uncle, an aunt, mom, dad that says, hey, you have to watch this?
No, it was funny enough. It was Hulk Hogan and I would say Hulk Hogan and not Andre. It was right before, like around WrestleMania 2. I think it was like Hogan and Bundy were headlining the first WrestleMania 2. And I remember watching for the first time, just watching wrestling and looking for it, like, because they would have it on pay-per-view, but it wasn't even pay-per-view the way it is today. At some places, you bought it like what was it called?
Closed circuit. Closed circuit. You had to go to a church to watch.
Right. You would go to some kind of a bar or a small venue to watch it. And that just kind of, I fell in love with it. You know, it was just, it was happening all over the world. Wrestling was everywhere. You know, on late night television, you'd see Hogan make his appearances, especially during the WrestleMania season when WrestleMania started to become a big thing. So, yeah, it just slowly crept into my life. And, but what really changed it is, the watching the NWA for the first time, because I never got the NWA/WCW. I live in Connecticut, which was WWE country over here. So my father and mother had a family friend that they would visit on Saturdays, and they lived about 30 minutes away. And we didn't get TBS, but they did. So on Saturdays, 6:05, I would find this other wrestling that was just so different from what I was getting, you know, in WWF. And, you know, I loved the magazines as a kid, and there would be Ric Flair, the guy I'd see in the magazines. And back then, magazines, people don't realize how big those were for wrestling, because even if you didn't watch the programs because you didn't get them, obviously this was way pre-internet and stuff, the magazines really kept you informed of who else was out there. You know, there was a whole other world that we weren't aware of, and you followed that through wrestling magazines. And so I'd say when I first saw Flair, I'd say circa 88 is when I really, really fell in love and started to have thoughts of doing it, you know, for real, you know.
Is there a promotion that you've kind of gone back and watched and enjoyed? I in recent years really got into the Dallas territory and just wondered, you know, where was this all my life? And I wish I'd have gotten this as a kid growing up.
I have done that sporadically, you know, going down the old YouTube rabbit hole with some promotions. What I do remember, and I don't do it as much as I used to, but when you watch wrestling from those days, you realize how amazing the crowds were. And, you know, a lot of it watching, like you said, world class, like you'd hear the fans like really cheer like it was a shoot for the Von Erichs. You know, there was like the Beatles, right? Yeah. And, you know, how that has changed to today. And I think that's a huge reason is just, you know, having wrestling so unique and having so much access to wrestling and being so desensitized. I don't think we have figured out yet, you know, how to kind of make it special. Like you couldn't do the Attitude Era if it was, if the internet was around the way it is. I mean, the internet was around, but it was like AOL. You have to wait 10 minutes to download.
Yep.
You know, but today the way everything is so instant gratification and so right there. But all the wrestling companies really need to find what is the way we fully move forward and have it be, you know, have it not hinder, have it be a positive thing. And I don't think either company has really used the internet to the best of its ability as a tool, you know. So, yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah. No, that's a great point, though. Yeah.
So many ways to be interactive or to do so many things. Like if the NWO was going on today, I guarantee you Scott Hall would have some live feed going on as he's kicking someone's ass in the ring or something. You know, and I just don't see, and that's just a little thing. I'm just, you know, throwing it out there. But we need creativity from the guys that are, you know, getting over today, the Sammy Guevaras and the Hangman Adam Pages and the Kenny Omegas. We need to, the Young Bucks, we need to start seeing these guys push it wherever it is. It's not my job anymore, but they've got to figure out how to best connect today, you know?
Yeah. So when it was your job, what made that decision for you? You were a Hulk Hogan fan, and you watched WrestleMania 2. When was it that you said, I can do this, I want to do this?
I would say probably senior year of high school. It was, I think I went to a NWA show. They'd come to the Meadowlands, which is New Jersey. And I think it was like Flair and Sting for the title. And it was rumored everywhere. They had the 900 lines back in those days. And I called the 900 lines, paying like $5 a minute. But the scoop was that Sting was going to beat Flair at this house show. And it was like a huge snowstorm, like 10 inches of snow. I went all the way from Connecticut in these horrible conditions to watch Flair lose the title to Sting. And it was like he lost it right back like 2 nights later. But I just had to be there for the title change. And it was then where I really started to being closer, at ringside and kind of seeing how wrestlers worked, how they sold, how they called spots, and just really being there from the ringside level, like, I can do this. I can really do this. And, I graduated high school in 1991, worked for a year, and on my 19th birthday, October 16th, 1992, I had my first pro wrestling match in Calgary.
So when they say 16-time world champion Ric Flair, but it's really like 30 times, you witnessed one of those times?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's an awesome story.
Yeah. So the awesome part I got out of that is you called 1-900 numbers as I did. I called them so often. My parents' phone bill was $1,000, and I had lost my life for a summer. Did you get that high bill one time?
I think the most I ever got was close to 700. But yeah, I got so much trouble, dude. I remember having to work. I worked at a Stop and Shop grocery store as a bag boy.
Me too.
Making minimum wage.
$1.50 an hour. Yeah.
But giving my parents like all of it, because back then you had to pay, right? Or else they'd cut your phone.
Yeah.
And mom and dad aren't going to change their number to, for that. So, I had to pay for it. It was crazy.
Yeah. And then did you get beat as well? Being PC, you wouldn't beat anybody nowadays. But I got my ass beat. I got my ass beat.
Yeah, I get my ass kicked. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what was the decision, and this is just an easy question, to go to Calgary to train? Why there over any place else?
Sure. Back to the wrestling magazines. When I was working at Stop and Shop, I would have my break and 15-minute break, and I'd go to the section with the wrestling magazines, And one day, this is, again, pre-internet, and I didn't know anybody in the business. I found an article, or advertisement, I should say, in the back of one of the wrestling magazines, and it said, Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling Camp, Dare to Be Great. And they had a phone number, which I'd never, back then, it was like, if it wasn't a 900 number, it had to be legit. And it was. I spoke to Bruce Hart.
Wow.
And, set up, the thing and asked, talked to my parents. And when it was time, about a year later, maybe a little less, I went up there. I had it all, booked up and bought my plane tickets and went up there from July, all of August. And in September is when I became a pro wrestler.
Parents supportive and everything about this crazy ass idea?
Yeah. But no, in some ways, like they didn't want to say no to my dreams, even though it was, I don't think any of us really had an idea of how shady and weird it was. I had a little bit of a clue, but still, when you think of signing with the WWF, you think you're signing with like the NFL.
Right.
And it wasn't like that at all. Even in those days, which, I was considered quite lucky. I signed my first contract at 20 with the WWF. Still, I thought my life was going to change, although it did change. You aren't making the money we all thought was being made, It was just the biggest work, and you really started to see how effed up this business is. You start seeing through the cracks, and guys who you looked up to are broke as well. Guys who are superstars on television, even when they're with the WWF, and you hear these horror stories about they're barely getting by because the payoffs were not good this week. I mean, I remember being in the WWE and wrestling out in San Bernardino, California as Aldo. Main event was Bam Bam Bigelow versus Sid Vicious, and it was a cage match, and we all got paid $200 for that show. Wow. All of us, even the main event.
Wow.
And actually, to make it even worse, we are allowed a $200 advance, for every night for expenses, whatever, just pocket money. And actually, I remember, I'll make it even better for you. At the end of the week, you're supposed to get a check for those venues. I got a stub saying you took a $200 draw, but the payday was $150, so you actually owe that money.
God.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't just me, it was everyone got that. So you didn't know from time to time what you were making at all. We weren't signed to guaranteed money in those days. I remember my first year as Aldo, I think I made like $70,000, which isn't horrific, but you're on the road so much, and you're paying taxes because you're considered self-employed 1099. Subcontractor. And then so after 70 grand, I got to pay taxes, and I got to pay my rental car and my hotel rooms and my food. You were in the hole. You were losing money, so even before I made, the most money, at the time was in ECW, where I was making 150 grand a year. Even then, to be main eventing the top guy in the company, having merchandise, action figures, video games, to make $150,000, I mean, it's good money, but it's not, it's not fuck you money.
Right. Essentially, half of that's going to the expenses that you just named. So the $150,000, you bring home $75 to live off of then.
Wow.
And that's why I think so many people end up in these bad positions where, because of either drugs or alcohol, or just because the money wasn't what people think. Even Flair for a while, didn't pay his taxes, and he got into a bunch of trouble and lost everything. And Flair was making good money. So it's just the pitfalls in wrestling were crazy. And I was not aware of it. My family was not aware of it till it was almost too late, till you're knee deep in it.
So, you hear about catering and things like that. Now, they even make it a thing on Raw sometimes where they fight on the table and food goes flying. You talk about your meals and your hotels. Were there any accommodations? Did they order sandwiches for you guys ever or anything like that? That's unbelievable. Wow.
You would get catering for televised events. So that means pay-per-views, because when you're on a televised event, you're there from 1 p.m. till the end, which is easily could be, 11 o'clock at night. So you're there 10, 12 hours easily. So that's when they provide you with catering, full catering, which is nice. But that is only for Raw, SmackDown, and pay-per-views. Everything else, we get there an hour or two before showtime. Like if there's an 8 o'clock show tonight at your local civic center, you're only, you got to be there for 6. So you usually come from the town, you stop at a Burger King, and you eat it in the locker room. And hopefully by the time you get out, it's so late, everything's closed. So you, once again, you hit a, fast food or
gas station,
and there you go.
What
very weird.
What changed during that period? They say there was like a downtime between 90 to 95 before everything boomed again. But you hear guys in the 80s, Iron Sheik and those guys, I was making 10 grand a week, 8 grand a week. What the hell happened 7 or 8 years later?
What happened was that was the Hogan era, when Hogan, from where WrestleMania 1 till about 91/92, I think it was 92 was one of the worst years. Whatever year Lawrence Taylor worked with Bam Bam.
WrestleMania 11.
I think it was WrestleMania 11.
95.
I
95.
think it was 94. Because 95, I think, was Shawn. And no, that was 96. But anyways, it's around that time. Yeah, you're right. And but anyways, it was money had gone bad. Vince had that steroid trial. There was a lot of money being put away for that because a lot of people we bought Cowboy Bill Watson for a while and Jerry Jarrett because they thought Vince was going to do time on that to take over and run wrestling operations. Yeah, so money was tight. The booking was horrible. Wrestling has always been very cyclical. So you also had wrestlers transitioning, going over to WCW, new stars were not created. So once the Hogan/Warrior era ended, they started to transition to Shawn and those guys. And it took a while. It took from like 93 till 97 for that, that the war took about 4 years to get, because they had shitty gimmicks. They had the Aldo Montoya gimmick.
We're getting there.
So, yeah, this was around the period where they were trying to put the belt on Shawn. And it took a while for it to take. It didn't, happen right away. And then Austin started to kind of, really make his move, you know what I mean? And starting to get over. So it wasn't until, after Brett and Shawn had the Montreal screw job and until Shawn dropped the belt to Austin and Shawn went away for a while, if we remember. Yeah. That's really what happened and what started the whole Monday Night Wars, Austin 316, huge business from like late 97 till about 2001,
So you brought up probably your favorite gimmick of all time, Aldo Montoya. Let's talk about that a little bit. But first off, really didn't know you were Portuguese till we started doing some information. So we thought it was just a shitty Vince gimmick thrown onto you. And you were supposed to be a soccer player at first. Why? Yeah. What would that have looked like? What's going on with that? Did you see any of that?
I saw a drawing.
Okay.
I saw a drawing, and it was just a regular drawing of a muscled up dude with a soccer jersey, and a soccer ball, just with, a soccer player with long hair, like long blonde hair or whatever. And that was it, and it said Montoya on the back. I was supposed to because it was the time of the World Cup. In WWE, business was bad in America. So I think what they were doing was like Davey Boy was going over and main eventing in London, in England, and we had a couple other places that we had German wrestlers that were doing well. So we were really, a lot of our big business, the good business times, were mostly overseas. So they were trying to crack Brazil, which even though it's not Portuguese, it's Brazilian, but the language of Portuguese is what is spoken in Brazil. Mm-hmm. So they figured, okay, we'll go to South America. 75% of South America is Brazil. We could use this guy to do, promos / media and get him over in that part of the world. So that was the intention.
And you kind of put the kibosh to that, right? Because you're like, I don't play soccer.
I did play soccer. My dad.
Oh, really?
I played soccer. My dad actually coached a couple of years in high school for our team, but I didn't want to do it in wrestling. Absolutely not. But it wasn't my idea. I was not in the position to say anything to anybody. If in those days, man, you actually had a good relationship with the old man. Like I had a problem. Creatively or anything, I would go to Vince. I remember going to Vince when I wanted to drop Aldo and do something else, and then so Vince was very much he's not anymore today, but back then he was very much present with all the wrestlers creatively. So that was just something they decided on their own, and the Aldo thing really stemmed from the drawing. I wish I still had it. The drawing was cool as fuck. It looked like a Power Ranger on steroids. Nice. Power Rangers were a thing.
Yep.
I had like these, Portuguese flag, as far as color and design on Road Warrior style shoulder pads. I had a mask that really my mask originally was supposed to, as far as the design, was supposed to be just like Kane's, more of just a front covered thing. And elastics in the back or whatever. The reason the mask ended up looking like it did was they never created a mask like that. Kane's mask wasn't originally like that either. They had another mask that was not comfortable. They would take us or send us to a place in the city with the costume people. There was a young lady there, and it was like a bondage place where they did leather masks and shit for. Nice. The sex industry, for people that do that stuff, and we went down there and everything that they were producing looked cool from the front, but you couldn't. The mask itself, being that it was leather, had no. You couldn't move. Your nose would get squished.
No give, yeah.
No give at all. So they ended up having to do the mask that we saw, which is a shame because if it was the Kane mask, it would have been just a different gimmick. But yeah, it was just, I was supposed to be a Power Ranger kind of thing. You know, almost like it wasn't supposed to be that bad. It was more of a lucha gimmick. That's how I took it. For me, I figured, you know, it's a colorful masked costume, very lucha libre. And I just figured, as a babyface, a young babyface, I would just do high flying stuff, which Aldo did. I did a lot of drop kick off the top. I did a little tope, high cross body. I did all that flipping and flying back. You know, especially back then, it wasn't what it is today. And I was 230 pounds, not 130 pounds. How some wrestlers are, you know, today.
Right.
Like, you know, you could be small. You could be like a Darby Allin, or guys like Orange Cassidy who are 100 pounds lighter than I was as Aldo, because as Aldo was like 230, 235, so it was just a different time,
Just to rewind for 1 second to go back to your training, because I'm a huge fan of that whole clan, the Bulldog and Owen. The videos you see of Stu coming down there and saying, "Hey, let me show you something," and he gets you behind. Did that ever happen to you where he grabbed a wrist or your neck or anything like that?
No, it did not.
No.
Times were a bit different. By the time I had gotten to Calgary, Stu was not doing that anymore. It wasn't even at his house anymore. When I got there, I think the year before Lance and Jericho came through the camp. And I think it was in the Lance Jericho time, I think it was 90, that they rented out a place. Like at I think it was behind a banquet hall behind that was part of like the bowling alley, but it was like the spare room for parties. So they rented it for a couple of months. So you had a ring and a room to ourselves where, you can go 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday, to train. And that's where we were taught.
Nice. You got nothing? I'm good because I'm now transitioning to ECW.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to transition to ECW.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned the Monday Night Wars earlier.
Yep.
I think it's fair to say people focus heavily on that and with WCW and WWF and that rivalry. Where did ECW fit into that? What did ECW force those two companies to do?
Really, in my opinion, we played spoiler to a lot of things, man. We were like the thorn in the side of both promotions, but in a way also that we were completely being ripped off as far as creative. We were creating stars. Somebody would come from, Steve Austin got let go in WCW, came to ECW for a couple of months. And the buzz that was coming out of Philadelphia was amazing. Like, people knew in the wrestling business something was happening. There was a group of about 2,500 smart fans that came from all over the Northeast that would congregate once a month at this bingo hall, and it just became like church for the smart fans. You know what I mean?
It did.
Because it was smart fans. But it also helped get guys over because we could be ourselves, and fans knew guys like Stone Cold or Stunning Steve at the time were just not given a shot. So it would Paul just let us lose. Aldo Montoya, same thing. They didn't give me a hard time at all. They wanted to see me kind of succeed. And that's what it was. And what ECW also did was provide all of us with a lot more money from WWE or WCW. Like, your value shot up immediately when you went to ECW for some reason. Because Vince didn't want you, he let you go. So you go to ECW, and they were making enough money that, Paul offered me more money than I made for the WWE ever. And that's hard to say. I think in 2001, I made the most money. I made 200-something thousand in WWE. But wrestling on a Friday and Saturday night, twice a week, 8 times a month, making $3,000 a week, $150,000 a year, I'll take that. I'm home. I wrestle on a Friday and Saturday, and I'm in charge of my own character, of my whole situation. And it's great. It's fun. And I'm part of something special because we still talk about ECW to this day. So in a way that it's still romanticized, and people still talk about how it was really the genesis of the Attitude Era, and other things that, it was just a fun time, fun people. And, it's something that'll never be done again. It was very similar to what punk rock was to rock and roll. We were punk rock, and we loved it. We loved being that thing, because for some reason in those days, it was almost like in music where, you couldn't sell out, or else, like especially in metal music or grunge, like, you couldn't be those sellout pop bands. You had to be hardcore. So we were like hardcore in that way where, well, we're not going to sell out to EC or to WCW or WWE. Somehow we had more integrity. You know what I mean? Which is bullshit. Everybody really just wants to get paid. But that's what it became. We were the cool kids for those years, up until the end.
It's a rumor, it's true, whatever, that you were a talent exchange from the WWE to ECW as like a baseball trade, essentially, is what is always out there as you see. So you were traded for who then? Who went to the WWF once you went to ECW? Nobody, right?
It was nothing like that.
Yeah, I didn't think.
What had happened was this. I went to this is after Kevin and Scott went to WCW. I was not doing anything with WWE. Aldo was kind of on its way to being dead. It already was. And Kevin and Scott were always like, yo, try to get out of your deal. We'll get you in down here. Maybe Bischoff will do something with you, whatever. I was like, okay. So I still had a year left on my contract. And I went to Vince. I went to Stamford, had a meeting, and I said, Vince, I would like to do something for you, but if you don't have anything for me, blah, 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 I'd like my release. And Vince said, I can't do that. You have another year left. It's going to look bad on me from a PR standpoint if another one of my guys goes to WCW. It's just a bad look. It'll look like everybody's leaving or wants to leave. He wasn't afraid of Aldo leaving and going to make money somewhere else. He was afraid of how it would look to everyone else. So he said, absolutely not. He goes, but what I will do for you is go to Memphis, work for Lawler, learn how to work as a heel. Because, I was 22, 23 years old. I had only worked as a babyface. He goes, well, go down there, learn to work as a heel. We'll bring you up 6 weeks to 8 weeks and give you a new gimmick. Okay. So I go to Memphis, start working for Lawler, and everything was fine, whatever. That was around the time where Dwayne Johnson was also down there as a Flex Cabana, funny enough. But the last week of my stay in Memphis, ECW was down there as part of the feud that ECW and Heyman had with Lawler.
Yep.
So it was like Candido, Sabu, Van Dam, Dreamer, Sandman, and Heyman. Those the works, the top guys there, and they were doing an angle with Memphis and Lawler. And Candido and I were friends from the WWF days. So Candido's like, dude, you got to come over here. He goes, this is really cool. I'm making good money. We wrestle. It's real wrestling. It's like how we, the stuff we love and all the shit we're passionate about. This is how it is here. And he goes, it's great. The schedule's great, whatever. So he talks to Paul. Paul talks to me. Paul talks to Vince. And I go to Paul. Now, at that time, there was no contract or anything signed. I guess I was just allowed to work for ECW until my contract officially came to an end, which was probably August of 98, because that's when I had originally signed in 94 in August. So then I signed a 3-year deal with ECW in August of 98 up until it finished. ECW went out of business.
So that debunks all of that crap about a trade. Because I'm like, there was no trade.
No, there was no trade. So. Nothing like that.
So the fans in ECW obviously voice their opinions. When you were there, I'm sure you heard the Aldo chants or the PJ Walker chants. Did that bug you? Did you not care? Did you play that up?
Oh, I didn't care.
No.
No. Well, the best thing you can do, and there wasn't, believe it or not, like I said this a little earlier, believe it or not, they weren't too bad with Aldo. But the funniest thing you can do with those ECW fans back then, especially, I debuted at the ECW arena. And the best thing to do is kind of like I broke that wall. Like I went in there, I was doing my Justin gimmick for like the first time or the second. No, it was the first time, as a matter of fact. And as fans were kind of talking shit, I would look away from the camera and be like, "Yeah, I know, I feel you, bro. Like I'm in on the joke with you. We're all just having fun." And right away, instead of like hating on me, they were like, "Oh, this guy's kind of lighthearted." I was joking. I was like, "I'm winking at you. Like I'm in on the joke. Let's play. Like let's have fun." And in a room of that size, where they can hear you and you really can connect with the entire room, it was just fun. It was easy. And then they're like, "Oh, this guy's pretty cool." Like, so you just had to win them over. If you went out there like a hothead, and took yourself serious, like, "Oh, he's just another WWE guy or WCW guy," then they'll eat you to death or eat you alive. I'm sorry. But if you went out there and kind of, fucked with them in a positive way, like, "Yeah, I know, did you read that thing in Meltzer said too? I know it's good." And like they would all chuckle and laugh with me. So then those little moments I became endearing to them. And then we had a great relationship, the fans and the character.
Yeah, for sure you did. One thing that I want to talk about, and then we'll bounce around because it's the way we are, is when it was ECW, the bingo hall, and we will say the real ECW, to the ECW that was on TNT. What the hell happened? Because this is us saying it, but please agree with us. It instantly got watered down. It wasn't ECW then. How did it? Was it just corporate getting their goddamn hands on it?
I don't think so. No. At least not what I wasn't told anything. I think Paul was just, I don't know. I think he ran out of, not ideas. I don't know what it is. He started to pull back more and more from creative, where I think Tommy Dreamer had a lot more to say. And producing the show on a weekly basis became harder and harder for him because he wasn't just doing it for, local stations that were, 1 o'clock, 2 a.m. He was working with a lot more, people telling him no or this or that. So I just found him not having the infrastructure to succeed. Like Heyman did everything from the buildings to, if there was a problem, it was him or Dreamer. And it just got too big for one guy to really effectively run it. Then he had people that were helping him that were just not getting it done. So I think from a storyline perspective, Paul, he had just way too much on his plate, and he just started to, the quality of his stuff just went a little downhill, and Tommy did the best he could. But Paul was also so stubborn that he didn't want anybody else really in there helping him out. So, it was just what it was. I don't even really remember. I just remember it being way too much for one guy,
And it would be.
Yeah.
Earlier we talked a little bit about what ECW did, as far as forcing WCW and WWF's hand. We start to see a WWF hardcore title come about. I don't know if WCW had the same thing. I can't remember, but they certainly started having
a hardcore title.
Yeah, and they started having their street fights. Around that time, I remember an interview with Pat Patterson where he said something to the effect of, you have to give them a little bit of that. 1 or 2 matches. It can't be the whole card. I agree with that sentiment, but I don't necessarily agree that ECW was just like bloodthirsty from start to finish. No. You had some opening matches that were damn good wrestling matches.
You sure did, yeah. And I completely agree. If you really look at what ECW was, you had, even though I don't know what people even really think of me as, but I wasn't that. I mean, I was the guy also that would wrestle Jerry Lynn for 25 minutes.
I was going to bring that up, yep.
To Jerry versus Super Crazy, Guido as well. Van Dam. Carino was really good. There's just so many guys. Then you did have the Sandmans and others, but believe that we had more wrestlers that could go than we had the garbage. Even the Balls Mahoney's and the Axl Rottens. Balls could actually wrestle when he had to. So it was what ECW was a little bit of everything. They had a really good match. You know what I mean? And then you'd have a tag match, and you'd have the crazies with doing all the, the New Jack stuff and whatnot. Then you'd have the match with the big storyline, like, maybe Raven or Dreamer or something. I mean, you had a little bit of everything. The women, even though there weren't women, it wasn't really women's wrestling, but the managers, the hot, scantily clad managers that always did the cat fights. And, we had a very good formula at that point where we gave fans a little bit of everything, I thought.
Monaco, Pennsylvania. That's where I saw wrestling so many times. There was one incident.
The Golden Dome.
The Golden Dome, exactly. November to Remember 97. Favorite one ever there. But it was months earlier. Sabu was in the main event. The crowd went apeshit. I remember at the end, a bottle got thrown into the ring, and Sabu just went through the table, so he gunned a table out of the ring and took somebody out in the first row. Do you remember this? Do you guys remember getting any shit in the back or anything like this? It wasn't a table. It was just like a piece of the table. I was just remembering
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember working with Mikey Whipwreck on that show.
Yes.
I was the opening match.
You were the opening match, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, stuff like that happened a lot, man.
Did it really?
Oh my God, dude. I'm surprised somebody didn't get sued more. I'm surprised any of this happened, because if it was today, in this day and age, the way this generation of fans are very, you got to be PC, and we were anything but PC, and you would get punched in the face, on any given night, dude. I mean, there were times where there could have been full out riots. Which was uncomfortable, believe it or not. Especially the Dudleys, they took it to another level. I mean, but again, that was what made it so great that's as real as anything could ever get, was not ECW as far as we were stiffing guys. It was real, but that atmosphere and that volatility, the volatility is what I'm trying to get at, was as real as anything. And I think that heat, that drama and passion, not only from the boys, but especially the fans, was what was so special. It's like they were almost as important of a part of the show than we were. Yeah. They made the show as much as we did. They were like the guest of honor that night, and everywhere we went, and they knew that too. They could make a show.
Yeah. Or they could shut it down. Yeah.
That too. Yeah, absolutely.
Gertner would have been crucified in this day and age if he'd say anything.
Yeah.
But that was part of it. It was amazing. It was that era.
Well, I mean, I think this is sorely missed. Wrestling, it could be done in many ways. What the WWE chooses to do is fine. They have great shows and whatever. They're very PG. That is totally cool. I get it. Children watch the show. They work for pretty much to sell toys and blah, blah, blah. That's cool. And it should be that way because so many kids do watch it. There also should be almost like a rated R or even X version of professional wrestling.
What is said that all the time?
What is wrong with pro wrestling that is presented in an adult-orientated fashion? Right out the bat, come right off the bat with, we're adult entertainment, not in a sexual way, but as far as content, storylines, etc. There should not be anything wrong with that, as long as we are telling fans and our audience this is what it is. I think we watch scary movies and stuff where people are getting their heads chopped off and murdered and stuff. I think we should understand now that today wrestling is exactly that. It's wrestling, and it should be allowed to take it to that level if fans are, this is what we are, this is what we do, and no one under 18 should be here. So let's go.
So an HBO, a Showtime, or somebody is silly for not picking up something like that.
I mean, I personally feel that way. I don't know how they feel. I don't know if the hard part would be perhaps advertisers, to make money. You know what I mean? That would be the biggest problem.
Alcohol would advertise for anything.
I wanted to ask about, let's shift gears just a little bit, the WWF locker room, mid-90s. I mentioned I love the Hearts. Owen, the Bulldog, Brett was my favorite. I am fully aware of things he has said and things he has to say. You mentioned Hall and Nash calling you, hey, come down to WCW. When they were in the WWF, they were the bee's knees. Razor Ramon and Diesel were the coolest freaking thing. Was it just that? I mean, was it just like these guys are so cool and people kind of hate him for that? To your knowledge, were they going anywhere and saying, hey, don't push that guy, push me instead? Was it jealousy?
I mean, they were kind of, I hate to say it because I especially Kevin, I love, Scott and I had a bit of a falling out, but, Kevin and I saw him a couple weeks ago, but they were dicks at the time. And I think they'll be the first ones to admit it. They were dicks. I think they were very much, trying to, we're going to be better than you, like to the locker room, we're not going to play PC games where we're going to go out there, we're going to outwork you and, take that top spot. It was very much like that. And I think that's where I think a lot of the heat spans from. But in a way, that's also, what Vince McMahon claims, you got to get that brass ring. That's what that was about back then. Guys were just not afraid to go out there. And it's like, if you can't hang or whatever, we're going to bury you and you're not going to be able to hang with us through sheer, whether it's playing politics or just we're going to outwork you, we're going to outthink you. They love this business. That's what it was about. I think a lot of guys were used to being on cruise control there, stuck in their own ways, not rock the boat like, oh, look, we're happy to have jobs, we're going to follow the status quo. And they were like, no, that's not what we're going to do. And in turn, they really forced, they wanted to stay with Vince, but they're like, Vince is going to have to pay us. And I remember being on the road, man. We were on the road at times. I mean, I remember doing 30 days straight, where we would fly into Germany, for example. We'd fly from New York or New Jersey, fly straight into Germany, and then get on a bus, heels on one bus, baby faces on another, and then drive all around Germany, Switzerland, all those places, a different town every day, wrestling every day, and then wrapping up in Berlin for like the big show. But think about it, traveling on a bus 30 days, every night you're wrestling, your body, and you're not making a ton of money. You're making probably $500 a shot, which sounds like a lot, and it is, but you're also killing yourself.
Yeah, cramped in a bus seat.
Home. Yeah. You're away from home. You're in a foreign country. You're traveling. You don't even know where you are. This is pre-cell phone, where you're calling home and spending $1 million on the hotel phone to call. It was hard times, but we made the best of it. And that's why they wanted to leave is better schedule, better money. We don't have to kill ourselves. And that's what really and Vince didn't want to let them go. But Vince, I think what Scott and Kev got was like first year, $850,000. Second year, like $1.1 million, and then so forth. They signed like 3 years, and Vince couldn't touch that at the time. All they wanted, they rather have stayed with Vince. They just wanted more money.
Yeah.
And Vince wasn't willing to pay.
Speaking of Hall, I believe it was in Massachusetts. We kind of all know the story. If you haven't seen it, YouTube it. I'm just curious. Were you aware of the condition he was in before he even got out there? Or was that kind of a surprise to you when he got to the ring? No.
I had been there. And I mean, this wasn't my first picnic with him that way. I was hoping, because I had heard he had come in from Florida and when he got to town, I forgot, I think we were at Fall River or New Bedford, one of the two. He had already been to the hospital in Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
That day. I think he went to get pills. I think he might have ran out of pills. So he went to get, he complained about something, went to get more pills. So the doc really fucking filled him up with everything. Jeez. And I was just simply hoping that, by the time we have to go on, he'll kick out, got him a ton of coffee, whatever. And yeah, it was. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. But when a lot of people don't understand, and this is part of the reason. Not that night, but years later. It's one of the reasons why I can't be friends with him anymore. When he wants to do something or has that way, you're not going to tell him no. He's stubborn as the day is long, and he's gotten better. And then he fell off. I don't know where he stands today, nor do I really care. But yeah, he did not belong. He embarrassed himself. He embarrassed me.
Yeah.
Because I brought him in under my kind of, I wanted to work with him there because I brought him into ECW back in the day, and that worked out really well. Scott was in a better place. We had a good match. So, I liked working with him. So I thought it was going to be a cool little deal. And, yeah, it was horrible.
When Sean Waltman says, screw that promoter for sending him out there, where do you fall on that? Which side of the fence? Did the guy make the decision he had to make in the moment? Was it the wrong decision?
Sean's right. Sean Waltman is right. The promoter should not have put him out there because the promoter, I think the promoter was trying to protect himself, right? Because if Scott doesn't go out there, I've sold out house.
Fans are going to be pissed.
Give all that money back, and I'm going to lose a ton of money, and that's got to suck, right? For somebody who, everyone did their part by putting asses in seats and working real hard, and here's this knucklehead that's going to fuck it up for me, possibly affect his family, and our families, financially, whatever. So it was a hard decision, but he was hoping for the best. He knew that nothing was going to happen to Scott as far as in my hands. I wasn't going to, but I don't know what he thought was going to come out of this. The best case scenario should have just been Scott did his entrance and maybe I just jump him and lay him out. But Scott, when he gets that way, doesn't want to do anything like that. He wanted to, in his mind, go. So, Scott's real hard to deal with. But Sean's right. He should have, it would have saved the promotion in some ways, some embarrassment. Scott, some embarrassment. But at this point, I think the guy was so mad. He's like, why am I going to protect him when all my money's tied up in this, right? So It's like, fuck him. Like, almost like I'm going to, let him bury himself. It was a real shit situation for everybody. Everybody could talk and talk and talk. But until it happens to you and you're in that situation, you don't know what to do. Of course I would do it differently. And but again, I'm not Scott Hall and I'm not making Scott Hall money. I can't piss people off.
Right.
I'm in a different position. So, easier said than done. But yeah, Scott should have never went out.
We've met him a couple of times at meet and greets, and you pay for your one picture, your one signature. They sign it, they hand it to you, but maybe you brought your action figure, your DVD, or whatever. Hey, you mind signing this? I remember asking him how much are extra signatures, and he just kind of waved. He said, "Get out of here. What do you got?" And he signed everything I brought. Rather than and some guys will say an extra 5 or an extra 10 or whatever. Right. He signed everything I brought. That means something to a couple of marks like us. Is he a tale of two personalities? Is he trying, do you think, at times? Because at times we met him, he could not have been better to his fans.
Right. I think the way he is you get there's probably 3 or 4 different Scott Halls.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Sometimes even I don't know who you're getting. Like I said, I don't really mess with him anymore for those reasons where 90% of the time, him and I always got along well. I've stayed at his home. He's stayed at my home. We've done business together, traveled the roads together. But there's times where he's just Jekyll and Hyde. And at times you don't know what you're getting, which makes it really volatile and uncomfortable. I've had fights with him, not so pretty. So yeah, he's hard. And at times you're right. He'll sign everything for, don't worry about it. Give me what you got. And then there's other times where he'll be a jerk about it. You know what I mean? So you never know who you're going to get. So
couple more questions here. You brought up that you talked to Nash once in a while. Who else from the original, and I always say the original ECW locker room, that you can send a text to or, you chat with? Because you guys were revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't talk to. I mean, like I saw Kevin a couple weeks ago. I was in Maryland, and unfortunately, when you're at these things, time happens like where he's needed, right? And most of the people were there for Kevin. He had a line out the door, so I get 2 minutes with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're literally given 2 minutes, and you see them maybe once or twice a year that way, which is the biggest shame. The last time I really got a chance to talk to him was I was in Albany, New York, and we did something for a small comic book shop or whatever, and the promoter took us out to dinner, and Scott was there, as a matter of fact, which was probably one of the first times, and to this day I still haven't had a nice time like that where we actually got to sit down and enjoy dinner and really talk, because back then, man, we used to all party and go to the bar and sit down and drink and talk shit. Nowadays, man, it's so different to where, everybody just kind of goes to, goes to their room, and goes, that's it.
Takes it out, go to bed, yeah.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, the camaraderie that was there in those days just isn't there anymore, and it's sad because those were some fun times.
Yeah.
One other quick question. Mark, as the host of the show, has banned us from using this one wrestling personality's name just because of how negative the guy is towards the fans. But I'll tell you, he used to manage the Midnight Express in the 1980s and carry a tennis racket. So you working now with Vince Russo, does he still harass this guy? Does he still harass Vince? You have an opinion on?
You can bring up his name.
You can bring up his name.
Jim Cornette.
I'm just playing, but
he's just.
I have no. I didn't know Vince Russo very well, and I'll tell you this real quick. I knew him for maybe a cup of coffee when I was Aldo, and I really didn't do much with him because he was at the time not full-time writing. He was with the magazine, WWE magazine at the time. Right. So I had left, and then I guess that's when he kind of, got more of writing position, etc., the Monday Night Wars, and when he rose to prominence. When I started to work for him, and I'm not saying this because he pays me, but he is one of the kindest, gentlest souls, one of the best dudes, like outside. I mean, I'm not talking about wrestling. I'm talking about ever. Like, he's so nice. He is so cool. Yeah, he's opinionated about certain things, but think about it. We're talking about the wrestling business.
Right.
He gets so unfairly judged, and people are so vile and nasty towards a guy who simply, you don't have to like the TV he wrote, but I'm sure you're not talking about guys who wrote maybe a bad episode or a bad season of The Walking Dead, and you're not talking about him like you want to kill him.
Right.
For some reason, he gets this heat, which is like, whatever, bro. And that's how he says it. He goes, I never tried to hurt anybody. He's so kind, dude. He's such a mild-mannered dude. It's like, it's funny. It really is funny because he's probably one of the nicest people I've met the past 5 years that I did not know in the business. That could not have been a bigger surprise of, wow, like, I can't believe people think he's like that because he's the complete opposite. What a nice dude. So much in common with as well. So,
see, I told you that other guy's just an asshole. Yeah. Give yourself some self-promotion. I won't say what you did right there, but okay, that was enough then. Give you guys some self-promotion, when we can listen to you guys and what you're doing and everything, because it's pretty awesome. That's the reason why I reached out to you guys as well.
Sure. Just go on, just follow Vince Russo for the show information on Twitter. It's a Patreon account. I don't have all the info, but he has a whole set of shows that he does, and our AEW review show goes up every Friday. So check it out. You could have all the information on my Twitter account at PJ Polacco, and also on my Instagram, same address at PJ Polacco, and I got all that stuff up there as well. So
cool. Final question for real. Would you have changed anything you've done? Yeah, see, that's a thick-headed question at the end that you don't think about.
I would. And what I would have changed was, I would say around 2001 in my departure from the WWE. Even though, from a storyline perspective, I was booked horribly. I was more of an enhancement guy, on Sunday Night Heat, wrestling D'Lo Brown kind of a guy. I was like, Bob Holly-ish kind of stuff. But what bothers me is I would have had a job there as long as I wanted, had I not been abusing certain substances. That's what I remember. What was the straw that broke the camel's back was Jeff Hardy and I were traveling together, and we both decided to miss a flight. Instead, we missed the flight and drove to the town. Instead, it was a charter flight with Hunter and Stephanie. We just said we were on our way, which of course we were, still in the hotel. Just like, we didn't care, dude. We were just like, fuck you all. And then of course I got fired, and Jeff got sent to treatment. Funny how that works. I just wish that I would not have done that, because I think things would have been differently. Although I did go back in 2006 for Vince's ECW. But I left on my own terms for that one. That wasn't, I just wish that because I screwed up. The WWE did not. I was responsible. And it sucks because Vince had always been very good to me. So I take that back. So, okay. That's about it, though.
Awesome. This was fantastic.
This was great. Well, we need to have you, because we haven't talked about matches. We'll just have to set up another interview to have you come back on and chat some more.
I got 28 years of stories. So.
Right? So this is the first touch of Just Incredible, Aldo Montoya, whatever you want to say. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much, man. It was my pleasure.
That was an awesome interview.
What was it?
It was just incredible.
We're really cheesy, but it really was. Man, this guy, one of my favorites in ECW. And we haven't talked about any of his matches. We didn't get to talk about some of the workers that he worked with. We need to call Just Incredible back, like tomorrow.
We do. Yeah, the hour that we had him on the line flew right by. It was very candid, very honest. Just a cool dude. Really great stories, and like you said, it's just really the tip of the iceberg.
It really is. Guys, go to Patreon and look up everything that Justin is doing with Vince Russo. Are you going to do that finally?
Yes.
Are you going to listen up?
Yes.
Yeah.
I will.
Okay.
We're recording on a holiday weekend, Memorial Day, so I will have time to do that this weekend.
Good. What else did you get out of it? What WWF stuff? Because the ECW stuff, we just touched on the ECW stuff, but we really didn't dive into him working with the Jerry Lynn match or, the Impact players.
Right. What stood out to me was when he said how Hall and Nash reached out to him and tried to get him to come to WCW. And Vince was saying, look, I can't have that. Everybody's leaving me. I can't have one more guy leave me. I was surprised. I thought the relationship with Hall was different now. I thought it was better. But, he makes great points. And sometimes in life, you just kind of have to make a tough decision and say, this person isn't good for me.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, it's absolutely understandable. And there was some good insight into the different locker rooms from ECW and WWF, where maybe, to be fair, WWF was kind of everybody for themselves a little bit.
Rough.
And ECW was a real team effort. They were working together towards a common goal.
Yeah, they really were. And I know we usually don't talk about money a lot on here with everybody, but he was very open about money. And no disrespect, I definitely didn't see that he was going to be making more money in ECW than he ever made in WWF. That's unbelievable.
Blew my mind. It really did. Really blew my mind. Yeah.
Man, I love this interview. I really did, and I really can't wait till we contact PJ once again and have him coming on the show.
Yeah, this was fantastic. Thank you so much to Just Incredible.
It was just incredible.
It really was.
Just remember, John, just because you're trash,
it doesn't mean you can't do great things. It's called a garbage can, not a garbage cannot.